support. Give me a subscribe. 300 subs by September 30th. Hello and welcome to a very hot, muggy, fire tornado California evening. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. It is day 20 of RPG a Day 2020. So it's 20, 20, 20. That probably means something, but I don't know what. Just thank you for being a part of RPG a Day 2020. Thank you for everybody who's contributed. And if you haven't had a chance to contribute yet, it's still not too late. Contribute to this amazing project. Show your love for the RPG hobby. Today's word is investigate. Da-dun, da-dun. Which leads me to my love of procedural mysteries like Leverage or, Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple, Sherlock Holmes, Monk, House, Numbers. My love of the procedural mystery. And can you do a procedural mystery in our hobby? Obviously, there are role-playing games that are very much geared towards running procedural mysteries. There's even a Leverage role-playing game, and I think there's a Sherlock Holmes role-playing game. I know there's a Doctor Who role-playing game. There's plenty of mystery role-playing games. There's plenty of horror role-playing games. I don't know if there's a house-type medical procedural role-playing game, but there probably is. And some systems definitely do it at other. But when you're doing with fantasy or supers and you're trying to do a Batman mystery, does the procedural mystery work in D&D? I've tried to run plenty of murder mysteries and plenty of mysteries and plenty of procedural crime dramas using the D&D mechanics, both 5th and previous editions, and I've generally found out that player characters either have absolutely no interest or just rush through the mystery, relying on magic to do the work for them, which I guess magic being the equivalent of the supercomputers and the super labs you see in shows like Bones. I mean, we know that that doesn't exist. No archaeologist, anthropologist has anything like the Jeffersonian from Bones and the Angelotron or whatever. So I guess that's the magic. But even then, they still have to do the work. So it's very hard to run a procedural murder mystery crime investigation type scenario, especially in D&D. Even though there are skills that, like investigation and perception and survival and whatever, and gather information and streetwise, those skills are gone now and whatever. The actual thought pattern is very difficult because let's face it, most people don't think like Batman or even like Monk or House or Brennan or the characters from Numbers. Most people don't know how to think like a policeman or a detective or the FBI, and most players don't want to spend 4 hours or even 2 sessions or even 4 sessions trying to figure out who robbed the bank or who murdered that guy. They either want to plow through it using magic and spells and intimidation, or they just give up and lose interest and try and look for something else. And then you, as the DM, are watching that frustration and watching that loss of interest, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what have I got to do to make this more interesting to these guys? Because I just ran something the other day, and I could tell by the end of the first hour that the players weren't interested because I don't know what it was, but there was definitely, you had to do a little thinking. It wasn't like I was running a major Hercule Poirot Murder on the Orient Express type mystery. It was a very simple, okay, where do we go next mystery? And then once we get here, what are we supposed to do? But even then, they were just like, because their brains couldn't think along the lines of procedural mystery. And this was even a very simple one. And Dungeons & Dragons doesn't reward that, because Dungeons & Dragons has the thought pattern that if you don't have proficiency in the skill, then you're just not good in it. And low numbers don't count. And that's the main problem with players trying to resolve these things and using their skills, is this thought pattern that low numbers don't count. Any roll below 10, pretty much every player is going to be, I suck. I fucked it up, you know, whatever, because I rolled an 8. I rolled a 10. You know, if it's not 15 or higher, as far as most players, fuck all players are concerned, I think, it does, I don't learn anything. And they will tell you, I guess I just see nothing. And as you as the DM, you're supposed to be like, well, every roll counts. You rolled the dice for your perception. Even if you roll the 1, you perceive something. Every time you roll the dice, you're setting a series of events into motion. But if you, as a player, tell me, oh, I see nothing, I learn nothing, I do nothing, then I'm going to be like, okay, you learn nothing. I mean, I remember one of my favorite stories is this guy who was convinced that rolls below 15 didn't count, and he's trying to pick locks, and he's like rolling, 11, 10, 12, and he's just like, I fail. And I'm like, oh. And even when he rolled a natural 20, he's like, I fail. I'm like, oh, you rolled a natural 20. I mean, I don't know how much higher you can get. What number do you expect? He's like, oh, I guess I fail. And he was just so locked into the I can't do it because of the way the skill system for 5e is written, that if I don't roll a certain number in my head, I just automatically fail, that no matter what he rolled, he was telling me, I guess I didn't pick the lock. I failed. It's like, and at some point you're just like, okay, I guess you failed. Or the other option is to just hit him over the head and go, no, it does count because you rolled, so I'm going to give you information whether you want it or not, even if I have to railroad you. Which means, I guess, do I have to railroad them in order to make a procedural mystery type scenario work in D&D? Because again, if they can't solve it within 20 minutes, they're losing interest, and then they're going to try and just hammer their way through it using magic or using brute force and just like, oh, that guy I think is guilty, so fucking kill him. And I remember when I tried to run Giant Slayer, and I tried to run the who killed the guard scenario that happens at the very beginning of Giant Slayer. And it was obvious that, no matter how many clues I was throwing their way, how matter obvious it was going to be, they were just so not interested that the minute the word half-orc was mentioned, they're like, oh, the half-orcs killed the guard. And they went and beat up the poor defenseless half-orcs. And I'm like, okay, I can't stop you, but none of the clues are pointing to the half-orcs other than racism. They're half-orcs, so they must be evil. So, investigation. Can you do a procedural mystery using the tools that are available to you with 5th edition, with the current, linear mindset that if I don't roll X, I've automatically failed. If I'm not proficient in this skill, I've automatically failed. I don't have swimming, therefore I can't swim. I don't have perception as proficient, so therefore I don't perceive shit. I cannot pick locks because I don't have pick locks as a skill. I cannot land a plane because I don't have pilot as a skill. That built-in mindset that if you don't have it, you can't do it, or if you don't roll a number, you just automatically fail, means that I don't know if you can do a procedural mystery in D&D. I mean, I've never been able to do it successfully. Usually the player characters either lose interest, as I had recently, or they just try and use magic or brute force to solve the problem, or I have to railroad them and say things like, no, your roll of 12 does mean you picked the lock. Why do you keep telling me you did it? That's up for me to decide. Investigate. So why don't you do yourself a favor and investigate your wallet and see if you have enough money to support me so I can buy an air conditioner because it's hot. Talk to you later.